a experiment to see if we can make a savoury version of a Jam Roly Poly. Obviously not using jam, because jam's sweet. We're going to use some Beef Ragu that I've got in, that I've had in the freezer. So kind of think it's basically a suet pastry, so beef suet pastry. You kind of think of steamed steak and kidney pie is normally the pastry soft, whereas I kind of think sometimes when I make a Jam Roly Poly, I bake it in the oven and it goes crisp. So I kind of thought, what happens if we do a savoury version of a Jam Roly Poly, but combine it with the meat from a steak pie type of thing. So we're going to roll it up, so it'll look like a Swiss roll or a Jam Roly Poly, but it'll be savoury, and then we can serve it with some nice gravy, and it should be very nice. So there's 600 grams of beef ragu in that container. So there's some beef, there's onions, there's tomatoes, and there's vegetables. From what I remember, it's in the freezer. It was just labelled beef ragu, and generally that's what I put in beef ragu, so I can't imagine that's what won't be what's in it. So normal pastry recipes are double the amount of flour to fat. So there's 200 grams of beef suet here. I'm not going to use vegetable suet because that beef's what I got, and I would always use beef anyway. So it's 200 grams, it's 400 grams of self-raising flour, and then it's 200 grams of beef suet, and then we'll just give that a quick mix together. Get out of the way. We'll see if we need it. I don't know if we're going to use all that beef ragu. I'm not entirely sure. Now, suet pastries are a funny thing. When you make it, this is the same ratio as if you're making dumplings, and dumplings you just need to form them together. But we actually want to make a pastry, but not mix it as much as we normally would do with normal pastry, because then it tends to be a bit hard to work with. So suet pastry almost kind of wants to, it just wants to be almost falling to bits, and quite difficult to work with. So it's going to be enough pastry. Might actually need some more pastry. We'll see how we go. So as much water as it takes to bring it together. Don't overwork suet pastry. And we're going to roll it out. We're going to put it on a piece of baking parchment, and that will make the rolling up a little bit easier. So that bit of pastry is all right. That's kind of the consistency we kind of want. It's a little bit ragged, it's a little bit rough, it's not fully mixed together, but that's fine. So that bit can come out, and we'll add a bit more water to this bit. Yeah, that bit's about right. And then a little bit of water just to bring this last bit together, and then we'll mix all three bits together, and it should be about right. It's a while since I've made dumplings or syrup pastry, so that can go back in, that can go back in, that can go back in. That's all. The ball doesn't need any more mixing than that. You don't need to rub it in like you do with normal pastry. So as normal pastry, you rub the fat into the flour and then add the water. You don't do that with syrup pastry. It's like a rough ball, so that's fine. Right, that out of the way. It's just cheap self-raising flour. I don't buy any other. I can't see the point. As long as the cheaper flours are okay, as long as you know what to do with them. You have to treat them in a certain way. The more expensive flours are a little bit more forgiving, in my experience. So you don't have to mix. You don't have to mix bun cases, a cake mixture just quite as well. You just have to be a little bit more fastidious with the cheaper flours. Make sure that you sieve and you cream things in properly, and you properly mix things. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I can't see why it won't. Someone must have done it before me. I can't think. There's no more new ideas when it comes to cooking, I don't think. So someone must have had a go at this before me. Right, well, figure about. Right, and then which way are we going to roll it? Roll it that way, I think. And get the rough edges. So, neat it up just a little bit. And then we're going to roll that way. I think that way will be a little bit too long, maybe a little bit thinner. We'll do it that way, and then it's not just quite as deep. So we'll see how we go. I need. Should have mixed me into a bit before. That's okay. I'll tell you what I'll judge it with. I'm going to wrap it in a piece of baking parchment, and then I'm going to wrap it in foil. And I think the foil is going to dictate which way we have to roll it up. Sorry if you're wanting exact recipes and exact methods. As you can see, I tend to wing it as I go along. I certainly wouldn't want to be practicing this for a week just to get it perfect and have all that food waste. This is much more about having a playing around in the kitchen. And to be honest, I think sometimes the method and the thinking is just as interesting as the process that we get to. And we'll also find out why we do things and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a big thing of foil, like that, and it's thick foil as well. So, yeah, we're going to have to do it that way. We'll have to do it that way, and then it will wrap up properly all over. No, I think we'll be okay. So, we'll do it that way. So, just like you would do a Swiss roll, we're going to wrap it up like that. And do it like that. That's okay. And then we've got some baking parchment. I've used it before for something else because we don't like waste, and there was nothing wrong with it. And I was drying something out on it in the oven. I was making some biscuits, so that's fine. And then we'll roll this up in this. As you can see, it's just a little bit of biscuit mix that's left on there. So we just need to make sure that we've got the seam down. That's going to be difficult when we get the foil on it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, nice long bit of foil. That's probably, if I'm honest, that's probably too much foil, but this is no time to be thinking about waste. So then we're going to wrap it up in the foil rather than just plonking it on a baking tray. In fact, I know what we'll do. We'll do it both ways. Now I'm thinking about it, we'll do it both ways. Right, so we'll get this off here. That's kind of quite an interesting experiment. Because I'm not entirely sure how this is going to turn out and which way it's going to be the best. But if we do it both ways, then that should be okay. So, unroll that. We'll have that in half. We'll bake one in the oven plainly, like that. We'll just put that in the oven like that. As you can see, look, We'll bake that one in the oven like that, and we'll wrap this one up in the baking parchment and the foil, and then we'll see which is what happens and which gives us the better result. So I've used way too much foil for that bit, but it doesn't matter. Right. Push that in there like that. Roll this one like this. Not too tight because it's going to expand a little bit because it's self-raising flour. And then twist that like that. We could steam it like a steamed pudding, We could steam that. That might be another experiment for another day. When I've got some more, if I've got a little bit, next time I've got some beef ragu out and I don't use it all, we'll have another go at this and we'll steam that rather than roast it. We're going to roast that today and we're going to roast this today. So we'll put a bit of baking parchment on a tray. I haven't got a tray with me. We'll pause. Right, so I've got the baking tray and I put a bit of baking parchment on. It's an old bit of baking parchment, that's fine because we're not bothered about it getting messed up. I've got a feeling that the end of that's going to want to squish out. So I just want to, I think the filling will squish out at the end. So we'll just press that down at the end and we'll get rid of that. So we'll squish that down a bit. I'm not going to waste an egg by brushing it and making it glazed. We can play around with that later. So this is a little bit like a pasty. So that's fine. Do we need to cut a hole in the top of it? I don't know. No, I don't want to cut a hole in the top of it. Yeah, so bake this in the oven about 200 degrees and we'll see how we go. I think they'll both turn out okay, but we'll decide on which one comes out better once they're baked. So 180 degrees on a fan oven until they're cooked, which will probably be about an hour, something like that. But we'll see how we go. Experiments are always fun. It's cooked, it's crispy. Let's have a look. I need something to put the tray on. No, that'll be right. We'll lift it off. Prepared as always. Ooh. So, that there. Right. Nice and crispy on top. It's not the healthiest thing in the world for you, but it's nice as suet pastry. Certainly on a cold winter's day. No, we'll slice it, take the end off, like that, and then we'll cut there. Let's see how it turns out. I think it'll work. There we go. It's alright, isn't it? We'll move the camera in a bit, see if we'll get a better view and take a picture and all that kind of stuff. And then let's have a look at this. So, cutting straight through the, just stay where you're supposed to be, that would be nice. Okay, right, so it's a bit warm. That there, and then that there. We'll have a look at this. It's alright now. It's alright. See what happens with the pastry on the outside. Not as crispy, a bit pepper still on the floor, not as crispy on the outside as I would have liked, but it's alright now. Looks alright. I think that's a success. Yeah, I think that's a success. So, yeah, we'll move the camera. Hopefully, it won't fall over like it normally does. So, I'll move the camera instead of, I'll pause and then I'll move the camera, otherwise I'll just make a fool of myself. And there we go. So, move the camera and all that kind of stuff. I think they're a success. That's really nice, is that. If I'm honest, I think baking it without the foil, which is that one, it's Not as pretty, that's kind of quite pretty, but very rustic, and you get the added bonus of crispy pastry. Certainly like the end bit, which loads of people like the end bit, and I've just tried a bit of that and it's lovely. I think that's a success. So that will be something that I would certainly want to cook in the future. And I think any kind of, so when you think about like a suet dumplings or suet crust, it's all about filling people up on cheap ingredients, which is the suet pastry. So, and you can get away with using less of filling. So that would certainly work. So if you think on a cold day and you want to fill a really hearty meal, that would be absolutely spot on with some nice gravy. That would be a welcome treat for anyone, and kind of quite a cheap meal. I'll put a price together for it. That's obviously like quite fancy looking, but I think that's nicer. That's fancy looking. That's nicer looking, and you get the crispy top. So that's what I would do if I was going to be cooking it. That's how I cook it. You should get a nice crispy top and some nice gravy. Yeah, I think that's really nice. A success. Someone must have made it before. Yeah, certainly. That's nice. So you don't have to faff around with making a pudding, like a steak and kidney pudding, and steaming it for hours and hours and hours. You can just bake it in the oven for an hour, and that's a success. I've said success too many times, but there we go. I'll put a cost to it. I'll put it in the description, and a recipe and all that kind of stuff, and how many portions it feeds. I reckon 6 portions, 6 good portions. So like 100 grams worth of meat. So you could use like a leftover. If you'd made a casserole or a stew, you could strain out the meat and the vegetables, chop them up, and then turn it into that the day after. And I think that would be absolutely lovely. It'd be a good way of using up leftovers. So any kind of leftover ragu or meat or stew or casserole, or even the inside of a pie, bulk it out with more vegetables, wrap it in suet pastry, which is, as you saw, was pretty straightforward to make. I think that's delicious. I think that's it. All I've got to add. Yeah, I'm going to eat it now. I'm going to make some gravy and eat it. But there we go, a success. And I said success again. But anyway,